A second time, I call the member for Werriwa.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In 1982, the great Australian novelist and playwright Thomas Keneally wrote the story of Oskar Schindler in his book of prize-winning work Schindler's Ark. Later in 1993, the book was made into an Academy Award-winning film, Schindler's List, directed by Steven Spielberg. No one, Deputy Speaker, could come away from that film unmoved. The imagery of the little girl in a red dress is one that I will never forget. Movies such as Schindler's List remind us of events in living history. It was not that long ago, and there are still survivors today who bear the marks of their experiences on their arms. Indeed, it was only October 2021 when Eddie Jaku, the author of another moving story, The Happiest Man on Earth, passed away. Eddie's story of survival against odds and against the most evil of regimes was remarkable, to say the least, and Eddie's book should be compulsory reading. That said, Deputy Speaker, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. We in this House must never forget the atrocities committed by fascism. We must never allow another regime, as described by the likes of Keneally and Jaku, to exist again. Some symbols unite us, such as our coat of arms, representing a united Australia held up by two of our most iconic native animals, featuring the 7-point Commonwealth Star. Similarly, the Olympic flag represents much that is good: faster, higher, stronger, together. Unfortunately, not all symbols are in this category. Symbols such as those in this bill proposes to ban only exist to promote hate, cause division and allow evil to flourish. Symbols that fascist movements from the Nazis and on have used to rally people to the cause of hate. And so it is appropriate that we together prohibit the exhibition of these symbols of hate. This bill has a number of different provisions. Schedule 1 of this bill will criminalise the public display and trading in 3 particular items. These include the Nazi Hakenkreuz, the Nazi SS bolts, and those associated with terrorist organisations. The symbols will be prohibited in a broad range of settings, including online. There will, however, be specific exemptions for religious, academic, educational, artistic, literary, journalistic or scientific purpose, where that display is not contrary to the public interest. Importantly, it needs to be pointed out that the sacred swastika in connection with Buddhist, Hindu or Jain religious observances will not be captured by these provisions. The government acknowledges the importance of this ancient symbol and the significance to these faith communities. The government's amendments will criminalise performing the Nazi salute in public to address the significant harm that it causes to Australian communities by this behaviour. The ideas represented by this are fundamentally incompatible with Australia's multicultural, democratic and inclusive society. Finally, the trading offence in Schedule 1 would target commercial profiting, including selling, renting or leasing paraphernalia containing prohibited Nazi symbols or symbols associated with terrorist organisations. Schedule 2 of the bill will criminalise the use of a carriage service for violent extremist material, possessing or controlling violent extremist material obtained or accessed using a carriage service. A carriage service will include a range of platforms, including web pages, social media platforms, email, chat forums, text messages, or downloading violent extremist material from the internet into a digital storage device. Violent extremist material, which is used to radicalise people and instill fear in our community, has no place in Australia. Criminalising the use of the carriage service for violent extremist material would allow law enforcement to take action against persons who are exploiting the internet to recruit, spread propaganda and incite violence, particularly those targeting young people. Offences under Schedule 2 will be punishable by up to 7 years imprisonment and allow law enforcement intervention at an earlier stage in an individual's progress towards that radicalisation. In turn, it will provide greater opportunity for rehabilitation and disruption of violent extremist networks. Schedule 3 of the bill will expand advocating terrorism as an offence in section 80.2c of the Criminal Code to include providing instruction on the doing of a terrorist act, praising such act, and where there is substantial risk that praise will lead to another person to also engage. This would address increasing concerns about the promotion and idealisation of extremist views as a form of radicalisation, particularly in respect to young people becoming radicalised online. Recognising that advocating terrorism is a serious and intentional act which can incite violence against innocent Australians, Schedule 3 of this bill will increase the maximum penalty for this offence from 5 to 7 years imprisonment. This would ensure that the penalty more appropriately accounts for the potential severity of the offending and better aligns with penalties for similar offences in the Criminal Code. Schedule 4 of the bill will remove the sunsetting requirements from regulations listing organisations as terrorist organisations under Division 102 of the Criminal Code. At present, listings cease to have effect after a period of 3 years and must be remade for an organisation to remain prescribed. The removal of the sunsetting requirements from terrorist listing regulations would help align the framework within the enduring nature of a terrorist organisation and their operations. Of the 29 organisations currently listed, the majority have been relisted multiple times, some as many as 8. While there's existing strong safeguards to ensure that any listing of an organisation is appropriate and ceases should the organisation no longer meet the threshold, the bill will enhance these safeguards. I understand the provisions of these bills have the support of key community organisations, including the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, the Australian Muslim Advocacy Group, the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference, the Hindu Council of Australia and representatives of the Australian Buddhist community. Deputy Speaker, this bill deserves the same unanimous support in the House. We obviously have our differences on many issues, and healthy debate in this chamber is essential for democracy, and it is these organisations seek to undermine. We have enough example on the historical record to prove that radicalisation and the glorification of these symbols is not going away. Good thoughts and wishes are not going to deal with the problems this bill addresses. Like other members in the House, my electorate is home to those who have fled their former homes and have been victims of persecution. So in a very real sense, this bill has personal resonance for me. And so we need to send a clear message to those who might be attracted to these organisations the symbols represent. We need action, and this is what the bill does, and it does it in the clearest of ways. I commend the bill to the House.